6 tons of living iron. A war elephant crashes into the Roman line. Legionaries run for the first time. In 2 days, Pyrrhus lost more officers than in all his previous wars combined. He won, and that is exactly what destroyed him. By the end of this video, you will understand why the most brilliant victory of the ancient world became a death sentence for the man who achieved it. One more such victory, and I shall be ruined. 280 years before Christ, Rome is not yet an empire, but it is already the most dangerous organism in the Mediterranean. In 40 years, it has swallowed the Samnites, crushed the Latin League, and pushed its legions to the very heel of the Italian boot. The Greek cities of the south, Tarentum, Locri, Metapontum, are next. They know it. They can feel it the way a village feels a flood coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but coming. Tarentum makes a decision. They will not wait. They will hire the best military mind alive. They send for Pyrrhus, king of Epirus, a man who, by the age of 30, had already been exiled twice, reclaimed his throne twice, and personally killed enemies in hand-to-hand combat during battle, something most kings delegated to bodyguards. He studied under the generals of Alexander the Great. He wrote military manuals that were read by commanders for centuries after his death. Hannibal Barca, who would one day bring Rome to its knees, called Pyrrhus the second greatest general in history, second only to Alexander. Pyrrhus arrives in 280 before Christ with 25,500 soldiers, infantry, cavalry, archers, slingers, and 20 war elephants, animals that Rome has never encountered on a battlefield, animals so alien to Italian soldiers that the Romans, the first time they saw them, called them Lucanian cows. They had no word for what they were looking at. Pyrrhus wins the first battle at Heraclea immediately. The Roman cavalry, spooked by the elephants, breaks and runs. Rome loses somewhere between 7,000 and 15,000 men. Pyrrhus loses around 4,000. He advances toward Rome. The road is open. Rome sends an envoy, not to surrender, to negotiate the return of prisoners. The envoy is a man named Gaius Fabricius. He arrives with nothing, no money, no gifts, no leverage. Pyrrhus tries to bribe him. Fabricius refuses. Pyrrhus then orders a war elephant hidden behind a curtain in his tent. At a signal, the curtain drops. The animal screams. The ground shakes. Fabricius does not move, does not blink. He turns to Pyrrhus and says, "Your gold did not move me yesterday. Your beast does not frighten me today." Pyrrhus releases the prisoners for free. He later tells his officers that it is easier to divert the Nile than to change the mind of Fabricius. Rome does not negotiate peace, does not surrender, simply raises another army, 50,000 men, marches back south. That is the moment Pyrrhus should have understood what he was dealing with. He is not fighting a kingdom that can be broken. He is fighting a system that feeds on its own losses and grows stronger. But the dream is too big to abandon over one uncomfortable fact. He stays and marches toward Asculum. The plains of Asculum, 279 before Christ. 2 consuls command the Roman force, Publius Decius Mus and Publius Sulpicius Saverio. Combined Roman strength, around 70,000 men. Pyrrhus commands roughly 40,000. He is outnumbered. He has been outnumbered before. Pyrrhus reads the terrain the moment he arrives, and his stomach drops. The battlefield is cut by the river Aufidus on one side and dense forest on the other. Ravines split the open ground into corridors too narrow for a proper phalanx formation, too broken for elephants to move with any control. The Romans have done their homework. They know what Pyrrhus's army needs to function, and they have taken it away. This is already a different Rome than the one he faced at Heraclea. The fighting on day one is unlike anything Pyrrhus has experienced. No elegant maneuvers, no space for the phalanx to build momentum. Just bodies pressed against bodies in a corridor of mud and blood. The Romans fight in the manipular system, small flexible units that can rotate, adapt, fill gaps. Against a phalanx on open ground, they are vulnerable. In this terrain, they are almost perfectly suited. For hours, neither side breaks. By midday, the river behind the Roman lines runs red. Men fight with broken weapons, with their hands. By nightfall, neither side has achieved a decision. The armies pull back. The dead are left where they fell. Pyrrhus does not eat, does not rest. He walks the field after dark with a single torch, counting what he has lost. He speaks to no one for several hours. Then he calls his commanders together and gives his orders for day two. He sends men through the night to occupy the forest edge and the approaches to the ravines. By dawn, his light infantry holds the broken ground. The elephants and the phalanx have clear space to operate. He has spent the night stealing back the conditions he needs. Day two begins on his terms. What follows is one of the most spectacular and terrible displays of ancient military power ever recorded. The phalanx advances like a wall of iron. The elephants move on the flanks like living fortresses, each carrying a tower with archers inside, directed by mahouts who have trained with these animals for years. The Roman cavalry breaks again. Roman commanders had developed anti-elephant wagons fitted with iron spikes and fire specifically for this battle. The tactic partially works. Several elephants panic and turn on their own lines, but there are 20 of them, and the Romans cannot neutralize all 20. The Roman center buckles, but the Romans do not run. Units that have lost half their men continue to hold formation. When a gap opens, a new unit steps into it within seconds. By late afternoon, the Romans begin a controlled withdrawal, not a rout, a retreat in formation, covering their wounded, maintaining unit integrity. Pyrrhus holds the field, Roman dead, somewhere between 6,000 and 9,000. Pyrrhus is dead, 3,500 of his finest soldiers, among them a dozen senior officers and several of his most experienced elephant handlers, men representing 15 to 20 years of specialized training each, men who cannot be recruited from the nearest village. He stands on the field as the sun goes down. The Romans are already marching, already sending messengers to Rome with requests for reinforcements. Pyrrhus looks at the ground where his officers fell. He does the calculation that no victory celebration can make come out differently. He is 3,500 irreplaceable men poorer. Rome is already printing new soldiers. Someone from his staff approaches, smiling, offering congratulations. Pyrrhus looks at him for a long moment. Then he says it. One more such victory, and I shall be ruined. 7 words, spoken quietly. No drama, no theater. Just a man doing the math and not liking the answer. This is not modesty. This is not exhaustion. This is the most dangerous kind of clarity, the kind that arrives too late to change anything. Here is what the congratulations are covering up. After Heraclea, Pyrrhus had already sent Rome a peace offer through his personal envoy Cineas, the finest diplomat in the Greek world, a man so persuasive that Pyrrhus once said Cineas had taken more cities with words than he had taken with weapons. The offer was reasonable, generous. Return of prisoners, recognition of Greek city rights in the south, a formal alliance. The Senate was close to accepting. Then Appius Claudius entered the chamber, blind, nearly 90 years old, carried in on a stretcher by his sons. The chamber went silent. He told the Senate that a city which survived the Gauls burning it to the ground does not negotiate with a foreign king standing on Italian soil. That the moment Rome accepts terms under military pressure, every king from Epirus to Egypt will understand that Rome has a price. He said, Rome does not make peace with an armed enemy. The Senate voted against peace. Cineas returned to Pyrrhus's camp empty-handed. He described the Roman Senate to Pyrrhus in a phrase that became famous in its own right. He said the Senate reminded him of an assembly of kings, men who believed what they were doing with the absolute certainty of people who have never considered the possibility of being wrong. Shocking fact, between Heraclea and Asculum, Rome fielded and lost somewhere between 30 and 40,000 soldiers in total. In any other civilization, this level of loss over 2 years would produce a political crisis, civil unrest, calls for surrender. In Rome, it produced 2 new consuls, 2 new armies, and a Senate resolution to continue the war. Rome treated catastrophic battlefield losses the way a healthy body treats a cut, as a temporary inconvenience that triggers an accelerated healing response. Pyrrhus had no equivalent mechanism. His army was a closed system. What went in was finite. He could recruit new soldiers, but they would not know his system. Every replacement soldier reduced his army's effectiveness by a fraction too small to measure in a single battle and too large to ignore across an entire campaign. He was running a machine that required precision components. Rome was running a machine that required volume. Volume always defeats precision over a long enough timeline. There is one more detail that disappears in most accounts of Asculum. Pyrrhus was personally wounded in this battle. A Roman javelin caught him in the arm during the fighting on day 2. He kept fighting, did not leave the field. But a general commanding a fully functional army does not end up in personal javelin range. You reach personal javelin range when the men who are supposed to be between you and the enemy are no longer there. He sends Cineas to Rome one final time after Asculum. The offer is slightly less generous than before. Rome refuses without extended debate. The answer comes back faster than the first time, as if the Senate has already decided and is simply waiting for the messenger. Pyrrhus reads the response, sets it down carefully. He looks at his remaining officers, counts the faces that are missing. He is the second greatest general in the ancient world. He is winning every engagement. He is going to lose this war. The trap is perfect. Every victory tightens it. Pyrrhus leaves Italy, not in defeat, not in chains. He simply leaves, because there is nothing left to win that would not cost more than the winning is worth. He has fought Rome to a standstill twice, won every major engagement, and achieved nothing that will last. He goes to Sicily in 278 before Christ. The Greek cities there beg for his help against Carthage. He wins there too, drives the Carthaginians to the western tip of the island. For a moment, it looks like he might actually build something. Then his allies turn on him, exhausted by his demands, his discipline, his refusal to accept anything less than complete commitment to the campaign. The Sicilian Greeks, the same people who invited him, begin negotiating separately with Carthage behind his back. Pyrrhus finds out. The dream in the west collapses not under enemy pressure, but under the weight of the people he came to save. He returns to Italy, fights one final battle against Rome at Beneventum in 275 before Christ. For the first time, the Romans successfully deploy their anti-elephant wagons at scale. The elephants panic. Several turn and trample his own lines. He loses, withdraws, sails back to Greece with less than 8,000 men. He came with 25,500. He had won almost every battle. He had lost the war completely. Back in Greece, he keeps fighting, takes Macedon briefly, invades the Peloponnese. At every turn, he wins engagements and fails to convert them into lasting power. The pattern that began at Asculum follows him like a shadow. He dies in 272 before Christ in the streets of Argos during an urban battle, not on an open field with his phalanx arrayed before him, in a narrow street, fighting house to house, the worst possible terrain for the kind of warfare he mastered. A woman on a rooftop above him throws a roof tile. It strikes him in the back of the head. His bodyguard finds him stunned on the ground, and an enemy soldier kills him before he can recover, the greatest field commander of his generation, killed by a roof tile thrown by a woman whose name history did not bother to record. The phrase he spoke at Asculum outlived everything else. His kingdom dissolved within a generation. His military manuals were lost. The cities he died defending eventually fell to Rome anyway, but the phrase survived. It entered Latin, then every major European language, then every language that inherited European thought. A Pyrrhic victory, a win that costs more than losing would have. It is used today by economists describing market strategies that destroy the companies that execute them, by politicians who win elections and lose their principles in the process, by anyone who has ever achieved exactly what they wanted and found the price written in the fine print. 2,300 years later, the lesson is still being learned for the first time by someone, somewhere, standing on a field they just won, counting the dead, doing the math, not liking the answer.